take my time in order to kind of let folks get into the meeting. So welcome everyone. My name is Dylan Adams. Today I have my colleagues Colleen Crick, Matthew Grassgard, and Christina Hanza on this call as well. And we're going to be presenting a demonstration of the cost reporting system for DWRS providers. And this training is really meant primarily for family providers, for those that are smaller. And we'll try to really get into some of the nuances that are particular to your type of organizations for doing these cost reports. So I'm going to go through an agenda right now. Let's just start off with, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A, the question and answer section. We'll have somebody responding to your questions as quickly as possible. So don't feel like you have to hold your questions until the end. If you have anything that's kind of maybe more particular to your specific business, we may ask you to email our team email address with that particular question. We'll be sure to give that information out at several points during this presentation as well. So before we get into the demonstration of the system, I'm going to go through a brief history of DWRS cost reporting, as well as what cost reporting is and is not, and then kind of how one really goes about preparing and then doing the cost report. Again, put your questions in the Q&A function. I'm going to leave this email address up here while I kind of talk a little bit more. Please feel free to email us any and all questions. We have 3 full-time staff who check that email address daily. We, especially in like August, right before the deadline, we might be a little busy. So give us at least 3 business days to respond, but more often than not, we respond same day. The other thing I would like to note is to please sign in to the cost reporting system if you have not done so yet. The reason is it's better to capture this stuff sooner rather than later if like you have any issues logging in, if your password doesn't work or whatever. All right, so we are hosting this particular family provider presentation in part because we get a lot of questions and concerns from family providers all the time. We hear from you and we understand that this can be a kind of challenging process for a lot of people. This might be your first kind of example of asking to report any financial information. So we'll try our best to clarify as much as we can during this presentation itself. And then as always, as I mentioned, please email us. You can't really over email us. I say that, but we'll see. I don't think you can over email us. All right. Types of questions that we're going to answer in this presentation. It's just me providing support. Do I have to do this cost report? Yes. I'm the license holder. How do I report my wages? I haven't tracked my costs before. How can I report them? Does this have to be online? Is it my year to report? And how will I know? And are you going to cut my rates? And the answer to that one I'll answer right off the bat. It's no. And I'll explain further in a second here. Okay. So you are now looking at a brief history of DWRS cost reporting beginning in 2017. The Minnesota State Legislature passed the cost reporting program as part of a bill back then. And the idea was that the state needed more information on what it's spending its disability services money on, and that rates continued to kind of go up and up, but we had no idea what needed to be kind of paid for and what kinds of costs really are out there for providers. So we began the development of the cost reporting program over the next couple of years, and then we went live with it in 2021. We would have gone live with it in 2020, but famously there was a pandemic and that kind of slowed us down. Beyond that, all that you really need to know is that we operate on a 5-year cycle when it comes to cost reporting. So we had the first year in 2021, and our last year, the first 5-year cycle will be next year. So this is year 4 that you are reporting in. After that 5-year cycle ends, we kind of randomize everything again, and we begin the cost reporting process again. Yeah, and that's pretty much the history of this program. So let's dive on into what cost reporting is. So what is cost reporting? This is the reporting of your actual cost to provide services. And this is like anything and everything that you might need to provide those services to maintain your business. We made a really expansive report that can really capture anything that you're spending money on. And the idea, again, is that we're doing this so that we can determine if our rates are sufficient, and also then not just like that we're overpaying, but also that if we are underpaying anybody, you should also know that as well. So this idea is to capture all of this information so that it can inform the legislature and future rate formulas, all that sort of thing. So what cost reporting is not, this is not an effort to single you out by any means. We're going to have about 500 plus providers report every year. So we're really dealing with numbers in aggregate. All the kinds of analysis we do are at an aggregate level. So we're never ever really looking at individual cost reports for any kind of analysis or research. We are looking at everybody. I will also note that we have a lot of people who are afraid that by reporting their costs, that will somehow go after their rate. That's not how this works at all, and we don't do that. Any information that we collect, we can only provide it to the legislature, and we can only really provide it if they request it. So it's not like we're collecting this data in order to come after anyone. That's not how this is supposed to go at all. And it's all, there are some restrictions on it, but this data is also private or somewhat private. It can't be shared with anybody other than in aggregate form. Lastly, there is an auditing component of cost reporting. Let me just stress that this is not an audit of your individual business or home. If your cost report is randomly selected to be audited, our auditors at DHS will simply ask for your bookkeeping records and your cost records. We're not asking for your taxes. We're not going to take you to the Department of Revenue. We're not dealing with that sort of thing. It's purely just to look at the costs and how you determine what you entered into your cost report. And again, the auditing process kind of started up last year. It's in statute, so we do have to audit some cost reports. But the idea here is that if you go about the cost report seriously and you enter your costs and can justify them by looking at your receipts and your bookkeeping records, there's nothing you need to worry about. Okay, so speaking of what to use to report, first and foremost, you should be using your official bookkeeping records whenever available. If you use QuickBooks, that's totally fine. You know, these might be certified or uncertified records depending on your type of business. And so if you don't keep records of your costs and wages, let me take this moment to give you all a wake-up call, which is that we do encounter a large number of family providers who don't keep track of their costs for their businesses, don't have any kind of bookkeeping software. And let me encourage you to do that, to start keeping records of all of your business costs, all of your payroll, all of your, you know, what have you expenses. And the reason for that is not just for us, but technically as part of a Medicaid funded program, a state funded program, you could be audited by the Department of Revenue or the IRS. And let me just say, it really is a good idea to keep records of your expenses. So please start doing that if you have not started already. But if you do not currently keep track of your costs, we provide several documents on our website, which you can just Google DWRS cost reporting. We provide several resources on the website that can help you track those kinds of costs. Things like, well, you'll have to just take a look at it. It's essentially like things like happen over time, what kind of costs are you doing regularly. It's a pretty basic Excel spreadsheet, but we do keep some resources available for those types of things. And if you have any questions about your billing, please check your minutes system, your minutes portal, and be sure to also track your billing separately outside of your Minnesota state portals and whatnot, just because it's also a good business idea to do. Okay. So what to include in your cost report? We ask that you include your actual cost of providing services. We aren't looking for averages or the framework values that you might have. We are asking specifically, what are you spending money on to provide services to the people under your care? Oh, sorry, I lost track of where I was. We also encourage you to add notes for clarity. Every single page is going to have a note section. So if there is something that you want us to know, we give you space to kind of explain anything. If it seems funny to you and you worry about how we're going to react to it, please write to your heart's content, ask us also questions, and to our email address. Okay. What to include in your cost report? Please only include costs that you had. You shouldn't have any kinds of theoretical costs or stuff that hasn't yet been realized, if that makes sense from a business perspective. We only really want the costs that are associated with providing those services. And here we'll kind of dive into a little bit more of what not to include. And I'm going to specifically call these out because family providers often do include these, not realizing that like some of these cannot be related to the DWRS service battery. So please don't include any room and board costs. The reason for this is that those are covered by other programs. So like I believe that they're like housing services. Your personal home or anything that is personal to you cannot be included in the cost report. And I think of this in particular about like your mortgage and your rent, your grocery bills. Like those are things that we can't really accept as cost because they do benefit you personally. Any supplies or anything that are covered by other waivers, medical assistance, other insurance, and this is mostly in terms of medical supplies where those kinds of things come up the most. So if you've had to pay for like a wheelchair or something like that, that might be something that's covered under medical assistance or insurance, and it shouldn't be the type of thing to include in your own personal cost report. And if you have any questions about any of these costs, or if you think a cost, you think it applies, but you're worried, you know, if we have questions about it, please, again, include notes, reach out to us at that email address that we mentioned at the top. Here's our annual reporting schedule. The big highlighted item here is that our reporting deadline is August 31st. As of a couple of days ago, you should have received an automated email from our system notifying you that there are 90 days left to report. Again, please get into the system, get started with your cost report early, because it might take more time than you think it will. We get a lot of concerns about people who don't meet the August 31st deadline. The August 31st deadline is to remain in compliance. So we ask that you submit your cost reports by then. If you fail to do so, you are out of compliance. But that does not mean that we cut your payments right at September 1st or what have you. We are required under state statute to suspend payments to providers who do not participate in cost reporting. We can't get around that. But those stop payments don't happen until December 1st. So again, you have to report by August 31st. If you do not report by August 31st, we'll send you a reminder at the first of each month until you do submit your cost report. We'll do that on September 1st, October 1st, and November 1st. And on December 1st, we'll notify you that we've stopped your payment. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. So the how of cost reporting, sorry about that. Just go back to this title slide. The how of cost reporting, is it my year to report? This year, we sent out a number of emails directly to your authorized agent on file. We also sent out messages to your minutes portal. So please check your spam folders if you don't think that you've received an email, or get in touch with us via the email address I showed you earlier. We will get your authorized agent set up with the proper login credentials and all of that. But just because of the way that our statute is kind of written and covers this program, we have to primarily interact with your authorized agent. So if you don't have the authorized agent up to date, please get that updated as soon as possible. Your login information should be in your email that I mentioned it before. This year, we did send out those emails slightly before March 31st. So the last time that we reached out to you with credentials should have been on March 29th. So if you want to search through for your emails, look at that particular date. And again, we also did send a reminder email recently, but that wouldn't have your login information. We apologize that we sent out multiple emails to you this year. That was a technical error on our part. We sent out notification emails both early and with some incorrect information. We have since fixed that. You should be able to log in with what we sent you most recently. And again, if you have any issues, let us know. So the last little bit of this presentation, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the kind of more complicated topics within cost reporting. So there are 10 pages in this cost report, but only some of them are really going to be relevant to you. When you're reporting your costs, sometimes things can get really complicated. You might have like one thing that you pay money for that you use maybe like 50% of the time for providing services, but then maybe 50% of the time for like your own personal use. So like there can be these kinds of gray areas. And so what we try to do with cost reporting is simplify this in a way that you can enter a cost and then you can choose to allocate it towards a service or not. And I'll explain that a little bit further. Here's the next slide. So how to allocate your costs. I think this will actually make most sense on this next slide. So let's say I have 3 costs. Let's say that cost number 1 is a pencil. I might use that pencil for recording down information that I need for providing services as part of my residential service plan. I might use that pencil for administrative tasks, for example, writing down my budget, writing notes to staff. And then maybe sometimes I use that pencil for my own personal time. But I might have a different cost number 2, that it only applies to both the service or the administration of that service. And for example, that might be an iPad. That iPad I use to track my emails and my budget documents, but then I'm also using that iPad to monitor video feeds or to provide a certain service for video. And then maybe I have a third cost, and that third cost is, how about handlebars in my home so that a person needing services can walk around comfortably. And that might be only for kind of relating to caring for that individual person. And so it wouldn't have an administrative section or it be related to anything else at all. So for those instances in which you might need to kind of explain how one particular thing that you spend money on might apply to both the service that you're doing or the administration of the service or something else entirely, we give you the space to write that. However, if you wanted to be very basic about everything, you can report all of your costs, like in cost number 3, just report the dollar amount and then allocate 100% of that cost to either the service or the administration of the service or anything else that you want to do. You can do that as well. And we're going to explain these allocations much more in depth in the demo. One thing that we do want to call out in particular is that with direct care costs, so these are your costs with direct care of the direct service provision for the people receiving the services. Those kind of get broken down a little bit more directly. So that can include supervisory, program plan support. Perhaps, I don't think this would apply to you all, but nursing time. So we do encourage folks to use like a time tracking document that we have online. If you don't kind of track your hours super closely, we provide a document that can help you to do that. Just know that when it comes to direct care wages, we do kind of split out the cost and the way we look at that a little bit more, just because that is a more complicated area. I'm going to linger on this page for just a little bit here. Your required pages are going to be in green. These are the pages that you will have to do, and they're almost certainly going to apply to you and your business. In yellow, I have possible pages that may apply to you, depending on the kinds of services you're providing and how intensive that can be. And then here are the pages that are unlikely that you will use. Those are in red. So I'm going to focus primarily on the possible pages and the unlikely pages real quick here. The possible pages, you might be paying for some costs related to supports for your people receiving services, and those should be reported on that page. Transportation and vehicles, some businesses do provide more of that kind of service, and it's not something that's always super well captured in our rates. And so these are chances for you to report your costs within those sections so that we can learn more about how to better compensate for transportation in the future. In red here, these pages you probably will not have to do administrative wages and benefits because most family providers, it's like a license holder and you probably don't have another employee. Maybe it's just another person in your household. So chances are you wouldn't be having administrative staff like at larger businesses who'd be kind of keeping track of all these sort of, I'm trying to use another term other than business administration, but they're tracking your budget, they're overseeing the programs, they're ensuring compliance with the state, all that kind of stuff. Those can be things that you do, but we have an entire section dedicated to staff who do just kind of that stuff. So that probably won't be a page that you would use. The other two, day facilities, your day programs, so you're not going to probably have that page. And then also other benefits, which is kind of a more complicated topic that really only gets used by bigger businesses. So we'd say it's unlikely that you would use it. And now we are going to dive into the demonstration itself. I'm going to stop sharing this presentation and I'm going to hand over the mic to my colleague, Matt.
Colleen's going to be taking it from here, Dylan.
Actually, me.
Oh, sorry, it's Colleen who will be presenting on this. Thank you.
That's okay. So that last slide on the PowerPoint would have been the email that everyone, or I should say your authorized agents, would have received back in March with your login information. I'm going to share my screen here, so please stop me if you cannot see this. Okay, so when you go into that email, again, those went out on March 29th to all of the authorized agents. You will have your login username as well as a temporary password. I do just want to call out for authorized agents, your username is going to be admin dot and then your email address. Just calling that out because that is very important, as your authorized agent is going to be the only person that can actually submit the reports. So moving into the system, this is going to be the landing page, the login page. We do recommend that you bookmark this page so that you have it handy to come back to. There is also this very nifty forgot your password link. So if you have difficulties logging in, feel free to click on this forgot your password, again, right here, and you can reset your password, or again, feel free to email us and we can do that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here, and you'll be directed to the provider report dashboard next. So on this dashboard, a lot of information here. There are links to our manual, offline Excel workbook. Again, all of these resources to help you with submitting your cost report. To find where to submit your cost report here, scroll down and there'll be sections here: reports not started, reports in progress, and reports submitted. Don't mind all of these. This is my test environment. You will all have one report listed here, not 500. So one report for you. If you start your report and then come back to it, it'll move to this reports in progress piece. And then once you submit it, it'll be in the report submitted section here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on our demo report. And this takes us to the first page of the report, which is the contact information. So again, up on top here, there's links to the manual page for whatever page you're looking at. If you need some assistance, feel free to click on that page and you'll be able to see some guidance and some help. This contact information page is going to be auto filled in with your authorized agent's information. So in this example, you can see my name is listed here already. I'm filled in Colleen Tester as the authorized agent for this example that we're going through. You are also more than welcome to add additional contacts in here. So in this example, I'm going to add Matt because he is, in our example here, a contracted accountant who's going to help me fill out this report. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to our cost report as a cost report preparer as the staff type. We're going to call him an accountant, give him an email, phone number. And once I hit submit on this new contact, Matt will be sent that email that says, hey, a login has been created for you in the cost reporting system. Here's your temporary password and your username, and he'll go through that process that you have already done. So that's my example here. If you need to edit or view it, there's those buttons here. So that is the contact information page. I'm going to hit save and next to move on to the next page here, which is the provider information page. And I want to just call out a few things here in the cost reporting system. Up top here, you can see the navigate to button. If you click on here, you can navigate through different pages of the report. Over here to the right, you'll see a notes button. And this is what Dylan mentioned. If you want to add a note for us to see on any of the pages that you're working on, please do so. Click on this button, add us a note, hit save, we'll see it. Again, that's up here on the right. So the provider information page here, enter your business name, your FEIN, how many unique recipients you serve each year. So for a lot of family providers, that might be 4. How many years have you been in operation? What is your business structure? If you have any NPI numbers, you can add a lot of them. So add them in here. And then last is the cost report from and to dates. So your cost report does need to include 12 full months of data. And your last date, so that would be the cost report to date here. It cannot be older than 18 months from the day that you're submitting this. So to make things pretty easy, we do just recommend using your most recently completed fiscal year. So in my example here, I'm going to do January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 to make things very easy on myself, just the last calendar year. I'm going to move on here, hit save and next, and I'm going to stop sharing and pass this over to my colleague Matt, who is going to go through some of the next pages here.
All right, wonderful, Colleen. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for attending our presentation this afternoon. We are going to go through, I believe it's 8 or 9 pages together now. starting with the revenues page. So again, once we get past that provider information page, you will land on this revenues page. So, for the sake of this presentation, I have entered a few things in just in preparation, but I will demonstrate how to add a new service type. The revenues page is a mandatory page, so if you received any revenues from the state, you will have revenues to report in your cost report. So for, again, the population we have in our webinar this afternoon, you are likely all family providers. A few of you might provide other services as well. But for the sake of this, as a family provider, once you click on the program service type, you'll see 5 different options to select from. So family residential services is obviously a residential service. So we will click that. The options listed under the service code here will change depending on which program service type you select. So again, if you select customized living, your options will be different. If you select, unit-based services, your options will, again, be different. So for the sake of this, we are going to be doing residential services. And the service code that we will be selecting is the S5140-UC, Family Residential Services. Again, that might or might not align with the procedure code that you bill for. But again, for the sake of this presentation, we will be doing the S5140. Annual service revenue. This is, you'll see these question marks here. It's the sum total of money a provider received for his service, not a rate. That's a very important part. We don't want to know what your daily rate is. We want to know what your annual service revenues was for the year that you're reporting about. So as Dylan mentioned in his introductory presentation, you can find this information from your minutes portal, wherever you find it. We want to know the exact figure. We don't want rounded figures. We don't want, again, your daily rate. We want to know the exact amount that you billed for the previous year. So this is going to be a very round number. So again, highly unlikely, but we're going to say $200,000 was the annual service revenue that we billed for last year. Your annual units, again, as a family provider, one could assume it might be 365, it might be 350, if some of the participants go home, so the family members' houses on the weekends, that sort of thing. But again, for the sake of this demo, we'll do 365 units. Annual recipients, to keep it consistent with what Colleen mentioned earlier, we're going to enter 4 here. So perhaps 4 people live in your home. You might have more, you might have less. So enter whatever fits with your business. And then I'm going to back up a little bit too. As Colleen mentioned, on every page, you're going to see the notes section, the navigate section, and then the link to the affiliated page on the cost report instruction manual. So if you ever have questions, just know that you can definitely email our team. We support quite a few providers every year. So if you can answer your own question by clicking onto the manual, we recommend that. But again, we have no problem, and we want to support you in any way we can. So once we have our information entered here, we're going to create new revenue, and you'll see that line shows up down here. If you make a mistake, if you have to delete something, that's no problem at all. You can always hit the edit button. You can change around your information here, or if you need to delete a line, we can do that there. So we're just going to delete one of these lines. I don't need duplicate information here. We're going to delete, and then at the bottom, you will see that these subtotals will auto-populate. So prior to deleting that second line, you would have seen this residential services line would have listed $400,000 instead of $200,000. So once you have all of your revenues entered, we're going to click Save and Next, and then we're going to move on to the administrative and program support, salaries, benefits, and allocations pages. Again, this is one of the pages Dylan mentioned. You might have staff, dedicated admin staff, you might not. For the sake of a demonstration, we're going to say no. However, I will show you what it looks like if you do. So perhaps you have, an accountant, or perhaps you have, people in housekeeping, dietary, IT. Those are some of the position types that you might find or that you might count as administrative. So for the sake of this demo, we'll just say we're going to have a contractor, and that person is going to be an accountant. For the position type, we'll select finance and accounting. Total full-time equivalent or full-time employees paid during the reporting period, we're going to say 1. And then for total salaries and wages, we will say 15,000. Again, very rounded figures for salaries and wages. Keep in mind that we want to know the exact amount that you're paying, not rounded figures. So from here, we're going to create the admin salaries and wages page or line, excuse me, and that will populate down here. Again, keep in mind, this is for a contractor. Now, if you do have admin wages, you can also add someone as a full-time employee if you do have one. We're just going to duplicate this as an accountant, but we're going to put it instead as an employee. So for the previous one, we entered that person as a contractor. You'll see contractor listed here. But just for the sake of this demo, I want to show what it looks like if you add an employee. So we're going to, again, duplicate everything. We're going to create that wage. And so you'll see now for the employees, there's going to be a separate button here that does not show up under contractors. So if you have a full-time employee, it's possible that person has benefits, whereas a contractor, it's maybe a little bit more unlikely that they'll have benefits. So when we go in, I'm going to delete this contractors one. Again, just for the sake of the demonstration, we just need to work with one. So if this accountant is working for your organization, you have to allocate their time and add benefits. So you'll see the benefits and payroll button here and the allocation. So we're going to start with benefits and payroll. And then we'll just say that you can add $1,000 for health insurance. You'll see other line items listed here: dental insurance, vision insurance, life insurance, different disability insurances, tuition reimbursements, retirement, other benefits, just those sorts of things that one could count as a benefit. So we're going to save and close. So the $15,000 for the wages plus the $1,000 for the benefits leads to a total compensation of $16,000. Now, we're not done once we get there because we have to allocate the time that they're spending on the accounting tasks that they're doing. So if you have one accountant and they spend 100% of their time supporting the administration of your DWRS business, we're going to put 100% in there. Keep in mind, these allocations have to equal 100%. So maybe they do other work too that unrelated to your business. If so, you can allocate their time appropriately. But for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to say 100% of their time is spent doing DWRS services administration. Excuse me. So we're going to save and close. And then you will see that 100% of their time is allocated here towards DWRS services administration. We'll scroll down. You'll see the totals. Again, these totals, similar to the previous page, these totals are going to auto-populate. So we have total wages for your accountant as $15,000, total benefits as $1,000, and then the total compensation as $16,000. And now down here at the bottom, you'll see this is going to be a mandatory, text box. So you have to enter whatever it is whatever methodology you use for determining, what you entered on the page. So, you could enter something like we tracked time cards or something similar. We just want to know kind of what your methodology was for the admin staff that you entered. Okay, so again, this is the admin page. We have our one employee who's an accountant, their total wages, the methodology for tracking, and then we're ready to move on. So I'm going to click save and next. Oh, excuse me. DWRS Services Administration. Allocation equals 100%. Let's try this instead. There, we'll try that. Allocations must equal 100%. Let's see. We're going to try something different instead. So instead, we're going to go back and add this as a contractor. I'm sorry, I'm not certain why that wasn't working, but we're going to keep the same information.
Just to help Matt out here a little, this is our test environment, so it does have a few glitches that the real environment you all will be doing your reports in won't have. So
Yes, thank you so much for pointing that out, Khalid. So again, 100% to services administration. We'll see if that one works. There we go. All right, so following the admin pages, administrative wages pages, we're gonna move on to the direct care staff and supervisor wages, benefits, and allocations page. What you will notice on this page that there is no yes or no question. You remember on the previous page it asked, do you have admin wages to report? So again, it's possible that you don't, but if you do not have direct care staff, then you're really not even, you have to have direct care staff as a DWRS services provider. So that's why you'll see that there is no yes, no question on the top of this page. So again, for the sake of this demonstration, we already have one employee entered, but we're going to add another one just so you can all see how that works. So we're going to add an employee. The working title, we're going to select as an owner. And then here is where we're going to indicate if that person receives customized pay for working with deaf and or hard of hearing service recipients. So we're going to click no there. If you do, of course, you can obviously select yes on this radio button. The position type, we'll just say direct care supervisor. Now for the annual wages, we are going to enter annual wages of, we'll say $50,000. And then the annual hours worked, we'll say 2,040. Again, this might not be realistic for you family providers. Again, for the sake of this demo, we're just estimating, throwing out random numbers here. Again, please do not round. We want to know accurate figures here. So we have our regular hours entered. We have our overtime entered, holiday or any overtime you might have, you can enter it there. Holiday pay, vacations, sick, paid time off, any bonuses. If you have any of these, please feel free to add them too. So we're going to create this direct care wage. And then you'll see that we now have two of them here. So for the sake of this, we are going to delete this one. And we're going to add benefits and payroll. So we'll add this. We're going to add benefits and payroll. So for health insurance for this, we will say that we're going to do $1,000 for health insurance. And then again, similar to the previous ones, you can add other insurances, dental, vision, life insurance, short or long-term disability, tuition reimbursement, retirement. There's a gamut of different, benefits that you can add here. But again, for the sake of this, we're just going to enter the health insurance at the top. We're going to save and close. So again, you'll see the $1,000 was added to the $50,000 total wage payments for a total compensation of $51,000. Now we're going to move into the allocation. We'll see if we have more luck on this one. So this is where you can allocate that direct care supervisor's time. And I'm going to back up a little bit and say, if you have multiple staff maybe perform the same function, you can combine them on one line. Whether or not that works for your business, feel free to enter as many staff lines as you need to. But again, if you have staff who are doing the same line or same work, you can combine them onto one line. So we will say that this direct care supervisor spends 100% of their time providing DWRS residential direct care services on site. If this, for example, if this supervisor was maybe doing some program plan support or other non-billable tasks, or even if they were acting as the accountant, you could always enter maybe 90% for direct care, and then they spend 10% of their time doing the accounting. You can always answer that too, so long as the total allocation at the bottom equals 100%. So we're going to save and close. And let's see, there we go. We have a total DWRS direct care allocation of 100%. Your totals will again auto-populate. And again, there's going to be this mandatory text box at the bottom where you describe your methodology for allocating costs. So again, you can do methodology, and we can enter, time cards or something like that, just so we know. Again, it just adds a little bit more context to what you're reporting. So we will save and next. Now that takes us to the other benefits costs. And if you recall, Dylan mentioned that the other benefits page is typically not too common for family providers. But if you do have other benefits, these could be things like, maybe season tickets or, to a sporting event or magazine subscriptions, things like that. They just have to be benefits which cannot be attributed to a single person in your home. So again, that's why we say maybe a magazine subscription for everyone, or season tickets for staff, things like that. But again, other benefits might not be very likely. So again, if you have to enter something, you're going to enter the total cost amount, where you're allocating it, and then just describing what they are. Again, for the sake of this, we'll say, magazine subscriptions or season tickets, those are, I don't even know how common those are, but those are the ones that our team kind of came up with. But for the sake of this demonstration, again, being that this is a pretty uncommon page, we're going to leave the other benefits pages no. Now that leads us to the client's programming and support costs. As again, with every other page, there's going to be a notes section. So if you want to add more context to what you report, you're more than welcome to do that. So I've come in and pre-filled some information in. And as I scroll down the page, you will see some of the things that can be counted as client programming and support costs. So supplies and equipment, we have $50, $500 for costs to access community services, $500 for participation costs for staff, $100 as for reinforcers, mileage reimbursement for in-program transportation. That's something that I'll touch on in a little bit here too, in-program transportation, which is transportation that can be directly associated with a person receiving services, for a total of $1,650. So again, the total will auto-populate at the bottom. And at the bottom here, we're going to describe our methodology. So we have a gym membership for a person receiving services, and the support staff, so again, they're both getting the gym memberships, is 100% DWRS service related. Supplies could include gym shoes, and mileage includes the time driving the person receiving services, to and from the gym. So again, that methodology box is a great place for you to kind of add a little bit more context to what you're reporting. And if you have any other client programming support costs which maybe don't align with some of these, feel free to add that total amount here, allocate it as necessary, and then describe what the nature of other client support costs are, just again, adding more context. So we're going to save and next, which takes us, again, this is a page that may or may not show up on your end. Again, since I'm now working in the test environment, it might just be that this day program facility cost is showing up because, again, we're in the test environment. Since we didn't select day program services as a revenue source, if you do not select day programs, services as a revenue source, this page may very well likely not show up. So I'm going to skip over this page and go to transportation. So now on the transportation page, let's see, you'll see things like, first of all, it asks, do you have any transportation costs report? And at the top, you'll see this section of the cost report collects DWRS non-wage costs related to travel and transportation. This includes all transportation that would be at least partially attributed to DWRS services. And then just a reminder that the total allocations have to equal 100%. So for our demo, yes, we are going to report transportation costs. We've come in and pre-filled some, so we're going to say $500 for vehicle insurance. We're going to scroll down and say $1,000 for fuel, $300 for vehicle repair and maintenance, which, again, will auto-populate down there. And then once you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see mileage reimbursement and public transportation or other vehicle-related costs. So each of these sections will auto-populate the total for each of them. So you'll see 500 plus 1,000 plus 300 equals the 1,800, excuse me. And then at the bottom, the mileage reimbursement for other transportation costs amount will total itself for $100. Now, what I want to point out too is that, you should not include transportation costs previously reported on the client programming support costs section under mileage, because again, there is a mileage section under the client programming support costs page. So we don't want duplicate information. The mileage reimbursement on this has to be not related to a person receiving services. It could be mileage to and from like the site of delivery service, or, any other like service related or non-service related travel that the company had to pay for, include that here. But again, if it cannot be affiliated with a certain person receiving services, you can include it here under mileage reimbursement. Otherwise, if it can be tied to a person receiving services, you'll want to include that under the client programming and support costs. Okay. And always with anything, and we understand that these allocations can be a little bit tricky, and some of these sections you might not understand maybe where to enter something or how to enter information. Please feel free to email our team. We want this to be a pretty painless experience for all of you, but we understand it can be a little bit confusing at times, so please feel free to email us. So again, for the sake of this demonstration, we attributed 100% of all of our costs to the DWRS residential services. So for vehicle insurance, fuel, vehicle repair and maintenance, mileage reimbursement, all of them are going to be attributed to DWRS services. And then at the bottom, once again, describing your methodology, vehicle maintenance costs associated with our car that is used to drive a person receiving services to and from the gym. Okay, so we're going to save and next. Vehicle cost and usage. So at the top, this section of the cost report itemizes all vehicles owned by the organization and includes specific information related to each vehicle's use. So do not include vehicles that are not associated with DWRS Services Administration. So again, we only want to know the vehicles that you use for the provision of your services. So we're going to go through and enter, and again, this is for the sake of this demo, we're going to enter 2020 Ford Transit, date of acquisition, date of disposal. We're still using it, so we're not going to indicate a date of disposal. If there's a lift equipped, estimated cost of modification. Again, we're just going to enter 0 here. If you had to enter, install a lift on it, put that amount there, of course. Primary county of service, we're going to say Ramsey. So we're going to scroll down all the way to Ramsey County. Total miles driven for the year, we're going to say 15,000. Okay, so we are going to create that vehicle. And again, if it takes a little while, there's a lot of information going into this system, so it might take a while for some pages to load. And that is, again, just keep in mind that is normal. So here it is. Now it's going to populate down here our 2020 Ford Transit. If you have to make any changes, of course, there's the Edit View button. And then you'll see at the bottom here, it's the allocations again. So we want to know the percentage of miles driven for all other services and usage. So we're going to say that 90% of the miles that go onto this van are used for DWRS services. So 90%, and then it's going to auto-populate to 100%. So again, 100% of that 90% is used for DWRS services. And please feel free to put it in the chat if you need more clarification on that. So we're going to save and close. So we have our vehicle entered on the vehicles page. Now we're going to click Save and Next. All right, so now that brings us to our general and administrative costs section. Again, this is a very long page, so kind of bear with me as we go through this. This section of the cost report collects general and administrative costs not captured on previous sections. The cost report preparer must allocate these costs to at least one administrative cost category. And then again, the totals will automatically populate. So as Dylan and Colleen had mentioned, you should not be including your mortgage, lease, or rent costs in here, nor should you include depreciation or business, depreciation. These are maybe more so for those day programs that will incur those costs as part of the waiver, funded by a waiver service. But we do not want to, you should not be reporting those in your cost report. So we are going to scroll down and say we have licensing fees. And we're going to put 100% of those to DWRS Services Administration, which again is this first column here. And forgive me for all of this scrolling. The first column is the DWRS Services Administration. So we're going to have $500 in licensing fees, 100% of them going to DWRS services. You'll see things like interest, non-mileage travel, bank fees, continuing education, annual meetings. We really try to capture the gamut of costs that you might incur as a business. So again, we have licensing fees entered, office supplies, we have $300 with 100% going to DWRS services, $150 for entertainment, 100% goes to DWRS services. And let's see here, other things like medical and first aid supplies, home and corporate overhead expenses, board of director fees. There are really quite a few different costs for you to choose from here. And then lastly, we're going to get down to the program and general administrative expenses, things like software, technology, telecommunications. So we entered some for software, we entered costs for telecommunications, and then it totals your general and administrative costs at the bottom. So again, if you're ever not certain where to put a cost, I know I've said this a couple of times, just please feel free to either refer to the family provider instruction manual or the other, just general cost reporting manual, or email our team. Again, we really want this to be a pretty painless experience for all of you. So the total general and administrative costs auto-populate, describe your methodology. We'll just say we looked at saved receipts. Again, it's very important to be tracking your costs as much as possible, whether it's saved receipts, accounting software, any other methodology for just keeping track. Again, we want actual costs. We don't want rounded. We don't want estimated. Just be as close to your actual costs as possible. Okay, so now we're going to save and next. And this takes us to the final page I will be covering, which is the direct care workers questionnaire. So this is information about, your agency just, as a whole. So how many employees who provide DWRS services or direct services to individuals does your agency currently employ? We're going to say 1 full-time. And for part-time, we're going to say 0. Okay, does your company offer holiday pay? Again, I don't know how common this is, but we're going to enter no for a lot of these. It might not be applicable for your business, but however, whatever is appropriate for your business, please feel free to answer. But we're going to say no to paid time off, no to health insurance, no to other benefits. Then how many hours of non-mandated training on average do first-year direct care workers receive? We'll say 10. How many hours of non-mandated training on average do direct care workers receive after their first year? We'll say 5. Then does your agency contribute toward the non-wage costs of attending non-mandatory training to improve the skills of direct care workers providing DWRS services? We're going to say yes. And lastly, does your organization provide tuition reimbursement to direct care workers providing DWRS services? And we're going to say no there. So once you have all the information entered about your business, click Save and Next. And then lastly, that takes us to the cost report summary page, which will show all the information that you just entered. So for this, I'm going to turn it back to my colleague, Colleen.
Thank you, Matt. A lot of information. So if you all have questions, please put them in that Q&A feature or send us an email. I'm going to share my screen here again. And again, please stop me if you can't see this. I do want to call out one thing that Matt might have mentioned, but even so, important to call out more than once here. Back on the direct care staff and supervisor wages, benefits, and allocations page. This could relate to you all as family providers. If you are a family provider and you are, for example, the only employee, you're the owner of your company, and you do not pay payroll taxes because of that, please make a note of this for us so we don't see this in your report that you don't report any benefits or payroll taxes and think it was a mistake. You intentionally did that. So I just want to call that out. Matt might have done that already, but it's just very important that I would like to call this out again. Please add that note because it can apply to you all as family providers. So again, this is on that direct care page, and that notes button is right here on the top right corner. Okay, so moving on, again, I did that nifty little, navigate to, and now I'm here on the cost report summary page. So Matt was kind enough to fill out this whole report, and now we are on the summary page. We do ask, please, that you hit this calculate button to make sure all of the data that you just put in here does show up appropriately on this report summary page. It's a lot of information for the system, so hit that calculate button, make sure it all gets loaded in here. You'll see this purple bar slowly creeping all the way to the end. It takes a while, give it a couple of minutes, make sure everything is calculated in here. What you'll want to do is just, take a brief glance, make sure, the numbers are looking accurate. Did we report $50,000? Yes, I remember doing that. Okay, these are looking correct. So I'm just going to scroll here all the way to the bottom and show you all that it'll show you grand totals. Kind of fun to look at that if you're a numbers person like we all are. So you have that here. This is also a time where you can print this summary. So feel free to hit the print button at this point. You can print your report, save it for your records. Moving on, I'm going to hit save and next. All of that looked accurate to me. And now I'm on the provider certification page. So this is the page that you certify the information in this report has been completed, it's true, accurate to the best of your knowledge, you tried your best on this, you're certifying that you did this report. And then you can submit it to us. I do want to call out again, only your authorized agent can submit and finalize the cost report. So in this example, Matt filled it out, but in our example here, I'm the authorized agent. So I'm the only one that can submit this report. So please make sure that your authorized agent is logged in. If you're having issues submitting the report, make sure you're logged in correctly. So here I'm going to click the button right here, certifying that I reviewed this report. It does this e-signature at the bottom, and then I am able to submit the report right here. If you have issues submitting your report, again, make sure you're logged in correctly. If it's still not working, you can try logging back out, log back in. Sometimes we've noticed if providers just give it a day, log out, come back in the next morning and try and submit. For whatever reason, that works things out. Otherwise, again, just email us and we'd be happy to look into the issue. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we will take a further look at the Q&A here. If you guys have more questions, we're happy to answer them.
Hi, everyone. This is Dylan. I am coming off video right now, or coming on to video, sorry. I am going to try to answer up the final questions that are in there. So one thing that I saw from Andrea Heckel earlier was a question about some of the system checks that we are doing. So we just sent out a few notices to providers, letting them know that we are going to implement a series of checks of their cost reports this year, and during which the idea behind this is not to get you in trouble or to punish you or anything like that. The idea behind these checks is to ensure that some of the data that we get is good quality, because we have a lot of providers who are like, I don't want to do this extra work. I'm going to throw in this cost. I'm not going to care about it, and I'm just going to submit it. And so I have had plenty of providers who throw in a $1 cost in their entire cost report and send it to us, and no, that doesn't count. So we have developed a system of checks that will scan a cost report for mostly blank sections. So if you are leaving certain costs completely out, and this is not for every single cost, so you can certainly leave specific costs and even specific pages completely blank. That's not what these checks look at. These checks look at if you missed things like, well, payroll taxes, or if you didn't report revenues, or if there's some other kind of common issue that we see. I will let you know right now that if you throw in a rate instead of reporting your actual revenues, we will potentially unsubmit your report over that. Like that's the one I'll give away. Sorry, not the rate was one. Also, if you are paying an employee, then you just put in their salary, their hourly wage, and not all the money that you paid for them over the course of a year. That's the kind of thing that we would unsubmit a cost report over. So we do those checks, and it's designed so that we can work with you. We're going to unsubmit your report if you fail these checks, but we'll reach out to you and explain what we think is problematic, and then you can either affirm that the cost report is actually correct and we are wrong, and you can resubmit, or you could correct your cost report and then resubmit. These are designed to be, I understand it's not the most fun to have your cost report unsubmitted and have to kind of go back and look at it, but this is the kind of thing that we do, and we hope to do in such a way that it shouldn't take more than a few minutes. That's the idea. And if you have, further questions about that, please let us know. Again, our team is going to be emailing out people individually about these types of issues. This is not going to be one of the automated things. We are going to try to work with you to solve any kind of data integrity issues. Could you share that the notes don't print for you? We need to print them. Okay, Linda Fairchild threw a question into the chat about notes not printing. Linda, if you are worried about the notes that you include with your cost report, you can save them off into a separate file for your own reference. They are certainly saved in the system. I go through them when I review cost reports. Will you be notified if you pass the integrity verification without issue? No, we won't. We will only notify you if we have a problem with your report. We're going to be doing these on a kind of more monthly basis. So if you go a month or so and don't hear from us, probably safely assume that you don't have to resubmit anything. And again, we will very proactively work with you. Again, the idea is not to get you in trouble. What is the timeline they're expecting for integrity reviews? We will be doing that later this month, starting. We've had under fewer than 20 providers so far submit their cost reports. So the number of submissions so far is pretty low. And the idea is that as we kind of get more throughout the year, we'll work with a lot more providers. I'm sorry, Mary Jo, that you can't hear me, but if you can throw a question in to the chat, I can try to answer that. We are a very small team. I apologize if you had issues with us responding to you. The entire team is on this call right now. You're looking at us. So we do our best to respond to these things as quickly as possible. I would just encourage our staff right now to reach out to Jacqueline Karam if you haven't. Otherwise, Jacqueline, if you send an email to that DHS.cost report and you put in Dylan into the name, I would be happy to directly work with you with any questions you have. Helen M put in two different questions, but they're related. I have an NPI and a UMPI. Should they be on the same report or on different ones? Those should be on the same report. So if you have two different numbers there or multiple NPIs, they should all be reported together. So larger providers who have an FEIN, they will report all of the NPI and UMPI numbers under that FEIN, but we track all the cost reporting stuff out there at the FEIN level. So if you are a family provider, which is this group, you probably, for the most part, your cohort doesn't have FEINs. So when we do the cost reporting system for you all, we assign you like a dummy FEIN. You might have noticed it. It's got like a letter Z and then a string of numbers afterward. That letter Z indicates in our system that it's not a real FEIN. It won't have any kind of tax implications or anything like that. It's just for our system kind of keep track of things at the FEIM level. But anyway, you would report all of your NPIs as part of that one cost report. Unit-based providers, the owner is the only person that provides service and they don't run a payroll. Should they treat it similar to FRS? Yes. That is Andrew's question. So you would probably put most of your costs on that direct care wages page. And then you would put in a note that you don't have payroll taxes, just like the family providers would. If you have other specific questions, please also throw those in the chat as well. There is a way to save the Q&A after the call. This is a question from Joe. We do have a representative from DHS on this call who can kind of help us figure that out, but I'm almost certain that we can take this Q&A and save it off as some sort of file that you can reference. And as well, this whole thing is being recorded right now, so you can watch this video later. It will be available through the resources section on the DWRS cost reporting page. So again, Google DWRS cost reporting. It comes up with our website, and in there is the resources page, and you can access like all kinds of webinars that we've done in the past, all of our other documents, links to the manual, all of our resources are available there. Yes, so the answer, Joe, is yes, the Q&A will be saved. Okay, I just got a question from Andrea Heckel. Can you touch base on how a family provider who has no other direct care workers or help determine their wages? Okay, sure. So Andrea's question is a little bit complex, but I'll do my best to kind of go over it quickly. And then if you all have any specific questions, feel free to reference this and then explain your specific situation. But how we often recommend family providers report their costs is, maybe start with all of your other costs first. So you explain, like, if you're paying for computers to track everything and you use those for your care, report your computers, report your supplies that you have, report your transportation, any kinds of things that you would normally do. And then what you could do is at the end of that, you could circle back and you can essentially say, okay, these are all of my costs that I've already reported. I took in this amount of money that was revenues. Okay, minus these costs, the amount of leftovers is essentially what I pay myself, and then you would report that. Does that make sense? Oh, you can't respond to me, but if you have any questions beyond that, I would recommend emailing us, because then it kind of gets into specific business situations. Yeah, okay. So Katie Olson mentioned this, and I do think this is really important to mention as well. So Katie Olson is like, we all have to take this cost reporting seriously. We often have providers who don't take it seriously, and ultimately she's right that all providers should take this seriously, if only because like the data that you all provide us gets sent to the legislature, and the legislature then uses that to determine rates. We at DHS do not determine rates, honestly, probably for the best. Leave that to the politicians. But that being said, if a bunch of providers aren't reporting their costs, then the politicians won't think that costs are increasing, and we all know that they are. So it behooves all of us to take cost reporting seriously, so we can have rates that reflect, the actual cost of providing services and keeps you all afloat. Okay. A final call for questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up this presentation. This, again, will be posted onto our, I believe, our archive website. You can access through the DWRS cost reporting page. If you have any other specific questions, maybe for your business, please reach out to us directly at dhs.costreport@state.mn.us. And then finally, Linda Fairchild, I saw that you messaged us, but some concerns you have that you didn't feel like were properly addressed. So send an email to the queue and mention me in particular, and I'll respond. And saying for, I'm blanking on the name, Jacqueline, if you have concerns about responding to your messages, please shoot us a message and put my name in there, DYLAN, and I'll get back to you directly. Okay, with that, I am going to end this meeting. Thank you all so much for attending. I hope this was really informative for you. It's our goal to make this as easy as possible. I know it's not easy. I know it can be stressful, but we're trying to make this as little of a headache as possible. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you, Matt and Colleen, for demoing the system, and have a great rest of your day.